Most lo-fi beats don't feel sleepy, and that can be frustrating, especially when everything seems right. You've got the chords, the tempo, the effects, but it still doesn't hit the way you want it to. And the mistake most producers make is trying to fix that with mixing or plugins, when actually the real issue starts much earlier in the process. In this episode, I want to show you the one thing that changes everything.
You're listening to the Lofi Music Academy podcast, your go-to space for all things lo-fi. Sit back, relax, and let's dive into the world of lo-fi music production.
Hi, and welcome to the Lofi Music Academy podcast. I'm Spencer J, your guide through the chilled out, atmospheric world of lo-fi beats. If you're new here, this is where we like to talk about lo-fi music, beat making, creativity, and the real mindset behind finishing music and building something sustainable as a music producer. And today I want to talk about something that I think a lot of producers quietly struggle with, especially if you're trying to make those late night emotional sleepy lo-fi tracks. Because here's the thing, most lo-fi beats don't actually feel sleepy. They might have the right tempo, the right chords, maybe even the vinyl crackle and the ambience. But there's still something missing, something that stops it from really landing emotionally. And you might think it's down to your mixing or your effects or just needing more experience. But it turns out it's much simpler than that. There's one thing that makes the biggest difference. And once you realise this, it will completely change how you approach making sleepy lo-fi beats. So in this episode, we're going to break that down in a really simple way, and hopefully help you feel a bit more confident, a bit more calm, and a bit more intentional the next time you sit down to create a sleepy beat. And here's a question for you. Do you think it's more about the sounds you choose or how you mix them? Let me know what you think in the comments. Okay, let's get into it. Most lo-fi beats don't feel sleepy, and I think if we're being honest, you've probably felt this before. You sit down, you've got a nice chord progression. Maybe you've added some vinyl crackle, a bit of reverb. Everything looks right. But when you actually listen back, something's missing. It sounds clean, maybe even lo-fi on paper, but it doesn't feel like those late night, drifting, almost nostalgic tracks that you were aiming for. And that's frustrating because you start questioning everything. Is it my mixing? Maybe I need more saturation. Maybe the chords aren't emotional enough. Maybe I need more ambience, more layers, more something. But here's the truth, it's not your mixing, it's not your chords, and it's not even your effects. It comes down to one thing. And once you realise this, everything will change. So stick around because I'm going to break this down properly. And I'll also share something I've been using recently. It's the kind of sound palette a lot of the producers in that lo-fi girl space lean towards. And it makes getting that sleepy feel a lot more natural. I think a lot of us fall into the same trap when we're making lo-fi. We try to fix the feeling after the fact. So we build a beat using whatever sounds we have, and then we start stacking effects on top. More reverb, more EQ, tweaks, maybe some tape plugins, maybe we detune things slightly, all in an attempt to force the vibe into place. And sometimes that works a little, but most of the time it just leads to over-processing. You end up with a beat that sounds muddy or washed out, or just kind of confused, like it's trying too hard to be something that it isn't. And the reason that happens is simple. You're trying to turn the wrong ingredients into the right dish. No amount of reverb is going to make a harsh snare feel soft. No amount of saturation is going to make a bright digital piano feel warm and nostalgic. At some point you have to stop asking, how do I fix this? And start asking, was this the right sound to begin with? Here's a mindset shift. Stop trying to fix sounds and start choosing better ones from the beginning. And I know that sounds almost too simple, but it's one of those things that only really clicks when you experience it. And honestly, part of that shift for me came from simplifying my sound choices. I've been using a pack recently where everything already sits in that softer, sleepy space, and it just removes a lot of the friction straight away. Because when you start with sounds that already feel right, everything else becomes easier. your drums sit naturally, your melodies feel more emotional without even trying, and your mix almost starts to take care of itself. And more importantly, you stop fighting the process. There's a certain calm that comes with that. Instead of constantly tweaking and second guessing, you're just building, listening, responding. It feels less like problem solving and more like creating. I think it's also worth talking about what we mean when we say sleepy in lo-fi, because it's not just about being slow or quiet. Sleepy lo-fi has a certain softness to it, a kind of emotional weight, but without being heavy. It feels like late nights, dim lighting, maybe a bit of nostalgia, maybe even a bit of loneliness, but in a comforting kind of way. And that feeling comes from restraint, not adding more, but choosing less more carefully. Softer snares, warmer chords, textures that sit in the background instead of demanding attention. When your sounds already live in that space, you don't have to force anything. You're not pushing the track to feel sleepy, it just naturally leans in that direction. Recently I've been thinking a lot about sound palettes, not just individual sounds, but how everything fits together. Because one of the biggest challenges as a producer is decision fatigue. You've got hundreds, sometimes thousands of sounds, and you're trying to piece together something cohesive from all of that. And that's where things can fall apart. You might pick a nice chord sound, but then your drums may feel too sharp, or your ambience feels disconnected, or your melody sits in a completely different emotional space. So instead of flowing, you're constantly adjusting, constantly second guessing. And if that's something you struggle with, it might actually be worth simplifying your sound palette. I've been using a pack recently that's built entirely around that softer, more sleepy lo-fi sound. And what I like about it is everything just fits. The drums, the textures, the instruments. You're not fighting anything. If you want to get that sleepy lo-fi feeling faster, it definitely helps. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to check that out. And what I did notice was how much faster I could get into that zone, how much less I was thinking, and how much more I was just creating. I think at its core, this is really about intention. When you're intentional with your sound selection, everything downstream becomes easier. You're not relying on plugins to create emotion. You're not stacking layers just to fill space. You're choosing sounds that already carry the feeling that you're aiming for. And that changes your relationship with music production. It becomes less about fixing mistakes and more about making thoughtful choices. And there's a kind of confidence that comes with that too. You start to trust your ears more. You commit to ideas more quickly. And you spend less time going back and forth and more time actually finishing tracks. And honestly, that's where the real progress happens. So if there's one thing I want you to take away from this, it's this. If your lo-fi beats don't feel sleepy, it's probably not your mixing, your chords or your effects. It's the sounds that you're starting with. And once you start paying attention to that, once you start choosing sounds that already carry that soft, emotional, late night quality, everything changes. Your process becomes calmer, your ideas come together faster, and your music starts to feel the way you've always wanted it to. You don't need to overcomplicate it. Just ask yourself as you're building, does this sound sleepy enough? And if it doesn't, don't try to fix it. Just find the sound that does. At the end of the day, lo-fi is about feeling. It's not about perfection. It's not about having the most complex chords or the cleanest mix. It's about creating something that connects even in a subtle way. And sometimes the biggest breakthroughs don't come from learning something new, but from simplifying what you're already doing. So next time you sit down to make a beat, try this. Start with better sounds, softer sounds, more intentional sounds, and see how that changes the way that you create. And like I mentioned earlier, a big part of this is choosing the right sounds from the start. If you're curious about the sounds that I've been using for that more sleepy feel, I've linked them below. But more importantly, just start listening differently. trust your ear more. You might find that the sleepy feeling you've been chasing was never something that you had to force. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, leaving a review, or sharing it with fellow music producers who might find it useful. Until next time, keep creating, stay inspired, and remember, it's all about the vibe. Take care and see you in the next episode.
Thanks for tuning in to the Lofi Music Academy podcast. If you're ready to start making lo-fi music and want to go even deeper, grab your free guide. Discover the 6 essential steps to create a release-ready lo-fi track from scratch. Whether you're using budget gear in your bedroom or a small home studio, this guide will help you get that polished, dreamy lo-fi sound you're after. Just go to www.lofimusicacademy.com. Until next time, keep creating those laid-back vibes, and don't forget to subscribe for more lo-fi tips and tricks.